Do you remember the 9 fruits of the Spirit? Do you think you can name all 9 of them? Well, let's try it together, okay? There's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. All 9 of them. Good job, you guys. Well, today we're going to learn about the fruit of gentleness. And to help us learn about gentleness, I'm going to do an experiment. But before we start our experiment, how would you describe gentleness? Well, I would describe gentleness as being loving, tender, calm, and humble in the things that I say and do. So now let's get to our experiment. Here I have a great big metal bowl. I have some big rocks, and I have some cotton balls. Now I want you to think, what do you think is going to happen if I drop the rocks into the bowl? Think about that for a second. What do you think will happen if I take those same rocks and I gently lay them in the bowl? Okay. And I want you to think about what will happen when I take the cotton balls and I throw them into the bowl. Okay, you think you know what's going to happen? Let's give it a try. First, we're going to throw or drop the rocks into the bowl. Wow, it's kind of loud, isn't it? I'm going to take those same rocks out. I'm going to lay them right here, and I'm going to place the same rocks in the bowl very gently. So let's see what happens. They're still making a little bit of noise, aren't they? Ooh, that one was a little louder. So they made some noise, but not quite as much as when we threw them, right? Okay. Now let's try the cotton balls. Can you hear anything? I can't hear anything at all. So these rocks, they represent our words. And sometimes we use words that are hurtful. Maybe they're meant to be helpful, but the way in which we say them turns out being hurtful. Kind of like when we threw the rocks into the bowl. And those same words that are meant to be helpful, when said in a different way, weren't nearly as loud, were they? Remember when we placed them gently into the bowl? We used the same rocks, just like we might use the same words, but the way we say them makes them maybe hurt a little bit, but not nearly as much when we say them in a hateful manner. But then we used the cotton balls. And when we threw the cotton balls in, we didn't hear anything at all, did we? Those cotton balls remind us of our words that are gentle and kind. Well, in our story today, we're going to hear about how Jesus used gentleness to help someone. Our story is about Jesus, so it has to be in the New Testament, right? And it's in the book of John. It goes something like this. Early one morning, all of the people gathered around Jesus, and Jesus sat and he taught them. The legal experts and the Pharisees brought a woman they had caught sinning, and they placed her in the very center of the group. They said to Jesus, "Jesus, this woman was caught sinning, and the law of Moses commands us to stone her. What do you say, Jesus?" They wanted to test Jesus to see what he would do. Well, Jesus bent down, and he used his finger, and he began to write something in the dirt on the ground. They continued to ask Jesus and question him. Finally, Jesus stood up, and he said, Whoever has not sinned, you can throw the first stone." And then Jesus bent down again and continued to write on the ground. Those people standing around with the rocks in their hands all dropped their rocks and went home. Jesus finally looked up and saw there was no one left. He turned to the woman and he said, "Woman, where did they go? Didn't anyone condemn you and throw rocks at you?" "No, sir," she said. And Jesus said to her, "Well, I don't condemn you, and I'm not going to throw rocks at you. But go now and sin no more." You see, all of those people standing around in our story today were ready to not just throw hurtful words, they were ready to throw actual rocks at the woman. They wanted to throw rocks at her because she had done something wrong. She had sinned. But Jesus used gentleness. He spoke to the crowd, and then he spoke to the woman. You see, Jesus could have gotten angry and began shouting at the crowd. And he could have gotten angry and yelled at the woman. But he didn't. He reminded the crowd that we have all sinned. And then Jesus gently speaks to the woman. He tells her to go home and to sin no more. You see, in our story, Jesus was gentle and kind. So this week, I want you to remember our experiment with the rocks and the cotton balls. And when you're tempted to say or do something unkind, I want you to think, are your words more like rocks or are they more like cotton balls? And I want your words and your actions to show gentleness.